For over a century, we've been told a simple story. Mass creates gravity, masses attract each other, and space itself bends around them. If you've watched the previous episodes, you know what's coming next. We're going to flip all that around. In the TTFT picture, masses do not attract each other, mass does not create gravity, gravity is not curved spacetime, and in a very real sense, gravity creates mass, not the other way around. Gravity is one geometric scale of the same phenomenon as magnetic attraction and nuclear binding, rotating toroidal structures in the ether that induce longitudinal flow. A mass is an ether deficit region. It forces surrounding ether to flow inward to maintain flux conservation. Gravity isn't a mysterious force between masses. It's what happens when the ether is missing. A mass is a hole in the ether pressure field, and the surrounding ether flows inward to fill it. That inward flow is what we feel as gravity. Gravity is an LMD-type flow. Longitudinal magnetodielectric waves are the natural, lossless mode of ether motion through toroidal geometries. Gravity is the large-scale, long-range limit of this same LMD behavior. At the device scale, we call it an LMD wave. At the planetary scale, we call it gravity. Geometrically, it's the same thing, a coherent, longitudinal compression of the ether. Mass does not create gravity, gravity selects mass. The gravitational coupling G is fixed by torsion energetics and dimensional minimality. The metric and mass sector are emergent, not fundamental. In general relativity, mass curves spacetime, and that curvature tells mass how to move. In TTFT, torsion and ether flow come first. Stable flows define what we later call mass, and the long-range ether deficit those flows create is what we call gravity. First, we look at how the LMD gravity channel gives you an inverse square law. In the static limit, the LMD scalar field phi, sourced by mass density, obeys a Yukawa-type equation. You can think of it schematically as Laplacian of phi minus ml squared times phi equals gm times rho m. For a single point mass m, the solution is the usual three-dimensional Yukawa potential. Phi of r is proportional to gm times m over 4 pi times exponential of minus mlr divided by r. Now take the long-range limit where the LMD mass scale ml goes to 0. The exponential factor becomes 1 and you recover a pure 1 over r potential. Phi of r is approximately gm squared over 4 pi times m divided by r. So in this limit, the effective gravitational coupling constant is just effective g equals gm squared divided by 4 pi. No Newton's constant is inserted by hand. It drops out of the ether dynamics of this scalar LMD channel. Next, we address how big G itself is fixed in TTFT. In TTFT, you don't start by assuming Newton's constant G. You start from torsion and ether flow on a compact 3 torus, and then you ask, what dimensional constants does this structure force you to have? Dimensional analysis shows that a gravitational type coupling must have the units. Length cubed divided by mass divided by time squared. TTFT then proves that once the dust settles, exactly 3 and only 3 independent dimensional constants exist: an action scale h bar, a propagation speed c, and a coupling scale g. You can't add a fourth without breaking the internal consistency of the theory. So if you start from pure torsion on a compact 3 torus, the mathematics forces 3 constants to exist: h bar, c, and g, and you don't get to choose g arbitrarily. Its value is fixed by the ether's own energetics and torsion spectrum, not by a curve fit to planetary data. Finally, connect this back to time dilation in episode 4. In general relativity, you learn that gravitational time dilation near a mass m at radius r looks like d tau over dt is approximately 1 minus gm over rc squared to leading order. In TTFT, the same LMD scalar channel that gives you the 1 over r potential also controls how fast local clocks tick. A deeper phi well means stronger ether flow, and that means proper time runs more slowly. At leading order, you recover the same structure. Local clock rate is approximately 1 minus effective g times m over rc squared. So the message is simple. The same ether channel that produces an inverse square gravity force also slows down time near massive bodies. Gravity and time dilation are two faces of the same ether flow. How gravity creates mass and not other way around. In TTFT, we never postulate mass as a primitive thing that then creates gravity. We start with torsion and ether flow. Certain stable, self-sustaining ether vortices show up as localized, persistent excitations. Those are what we call matter, or as mainstream would call particles. Their inertia and their gravitational mass are both properties of how strongly they deform the ether and how deep a deficit they create. So it's not really mass creates gravity. It's ether geometry and flow create both mass and gravity together. Bob Lazar. For years I thought Bob Lazar probably made up a good story. I still can't prove his history. But when I saw the internal layout of the craft he describes, something clicked. The geometry is exactly what you would build if you understood gravity as controlled ether flow. I'm not going to claim this is the explanation of that craft, but I want to bring up some key features that Bob told almost 40 years ago. The hull of the craft acted as waveguide. Flash matrix has same idea with the hemispheres. In the power source, the reactor, it had circular particle collider-like waveguide. It is not particle collider, it is perfect way to create a toroidal magnetic field with no helical twist, just like I explained how to create LMD on episode 3. Similarities do not end there. Bob also described waveguide that extends from reactor to the exterior of the craft. This is exactly same as center rod I have been emphasizing on episode 3. According to Bob, on the lower part of the craft had 3 emitters. These are adjustable extension of the center rod and used to maneuver the craft. Why center rod was not protruding the hull from the bottom, I leave for everyone else to figure out. What I want to show you is this. If TTFT is correct, then a device Robert described with a reactor, a circular flux tube, a center rod, hull as waveguide for toroidal magnetic field, and 3 steerable emitters is a perfect ether pump. And an ether pump can be used as a gravity, engine, free energy device, or both at the same time. In this picture, the craft does not push on the air or on space-time. It shapes an ether deficit in front of itself and then falls into it. It carries its own gravity well around like a portable black hole, but without a singularity, just geometry. Grand unification theories try to merge the forces. They assume space-time, energy, and matter are already there, and then they ask, how do the forces fit together? TTFT does something different. It says, start with one thing only, conserved ether flow on a compact 3 torus. No metric, no particles, no quantum axioms, just flow on a fixed topology. From that one ingredient, ether flow, you can build almost everything we normally treat as separate, fundamental concepts. Space emerges as the stable geometric pattern of where the ether can circulate. Time emerges as the parameter along the flow lines, the affine label on the curves of the current J. Forces are just different geometric scales of the same toroidal ether dynamics: nuclear binding, magnetism, gravity. Energy is the intensity and organization of ether motion. Matter is what a stable, localized ether vortex looks like to a low-energy observer. Fields are just the bookkeeping language we invented for these flows, and even the constants we normally worship as inputs, Planck constant, speed of light, and gravity constant, fall out of the flow and its spectrum. Magnetic attraction, nuclear forces, and gravity turn out to be the same phenomenon at different geometric scales, rotating toroidal structures pulling ether through their cores. Zero-point energy stops being a mysterious vacuum buzzword and becomes what it always was, the natural circulation of ether at all scales, something you can, in principle, pump and harvest with the right geometry. Even time is no longer off limits. Speed up the flow, you slow down the clocks. Shape the ether deficit, you bend what we call gravity. In this picture, the rate of time is just another ether variable, which means it's something a sufficiently advanced technology could, at least locally, engineer. So this isn't just a grand unification of forces. It's a unification of space, time, forces, energy, and matter into a single underlying phenomenon, ether flow. Change the flow, and you don't just move objects around inside the universe. You change the way the universe behaves.